sound of that tractor means it's time for us to go to work. Welcome to the Give Us the Dirt podcast, powered by Hoopah Grading Company. My name is Brandon Lindsay, and I am your host. I want to say Happy New Year to all of our listeners, and cheers to what we hope will be a very prosperous, healthy, safe, and purposeful year. We're excited to be back with you in 2022. Last year, we brought you some great guests, some great stories, and some great lessons that hopefully we can all use to become the absolute best versions of ourselves, both in business and in our personal development. Today's going to be no exception to that. Whether it's commercial buildings, renovations, medical offices, or apartments, this company can handle it all. Concord Construction, named one of the best commercial contractors in Charlotte, is building clean, modern offices all over the greater Charlotte area. Our guest today and my friend, David Privitera, has been with Concord Construction for 17 years, and he took on the CEO role in 2016. He was recognized by Charlotte Business Journal in the 2008 40 Under 40 Awards. He helped lead his team through the Great Recession, through a pandemic, and just recently through a corporate rebranding last October. We're going to dig into all of that today, and we're honored to have him join us on the Give Us the Dirt podcast. David, welcome.
Well, thank you very much, and Happy New Year. I could not think of a better way to kick off the year than to come and sit and look at that beautiful face.
This face?
That face.
That is
I know. I just had my eyes checked yesterday, though, so.
Yeah, I think that you need to have them rechecked.
That's right.
It is great to have you here. David and I don't know if you remember how we got introduced to each other. It was through a mutual friend, Gary Fry.
Our good friend, Gary.
Gary Fry is, if you haven't heard of Gary Fry, you need to check him out. He's the co-founder and co-host of a great podcast called Anything But Typical Podcast. David was on that, but Gary reached out to me and he said, hey, you need to meet this guy. This guy's doing some really cool things in the construction space in Charlotte. You guys would, I think you guys would hit it off well. And you probably get that all the time. People say, you need to meet so-and-so, or you need, can I get it 5 minutes? You can't do it all, but I have made it a point that anytime Gary Fry tells me I need to meet someone, I meet them.
He has a talent of just recognizing people that should come together that haven't already. And that's his legacy is bringing great people together. So I appreciate him doing that and appreciate you giving me some time today.
Well, he was absolutely right. You are doing some really cool things, and I'm excited that we're going to get to share that with our listeners today. You've listened to the podcast a couple of times. You know how we kick this thing off. And I actually stole this from Gary. So Gary, I'm sorry. Okay. Don't sue me. But we start this by saying, how would your wife introduce you to a group of friends that don't know who you are?
She will say, you will always hear him before you see him, because I tend to make a loud, grand entrance when I come in the door. But my current wife is my second wife, and I'm her second husband. And I think going through that process early in our lives and really understanding what it takes to find the right mate, I'm very blessed. And I think she would say that again. His voice leads him in the room, and his heart leads him in his life. So I hope that's the way the world sees me as well.
I love that. Voice leads in the room, heart leads in life.
That's it.
That's fantastic. That's really cool.
Thank you.
So let's go back. Let's start at the beginning. You didn't, unlike many of the guests we've had on this show, you didn't necessarily grow up in the construction world. It wasn't a construction family. Not
even close. No, it was more of a tech and banking family. But there was a blue collar vein to it. I was the first generation to go, to a 4-year school and graduate. But my parents, banking and computers, old school though, back when tellers were a thing, bookkeepers were a thing, and mainframes were a thing. So learned the work ethic from my parents. But yeah, I've always had I was like tangible results. Not to pick on the transactional world that we live in, but I always like to see things, see the result of your efforts. And I thought I wanted to be an architect for the longest time. I went to school for architecture and was told during my senior year of school that you're a great guy, but you're a lousy designer. And as I understand it, being a good designer is an important skill set for an architect, I think. At least that's what I was told. But in all seriousness, I had more of an engineering mindset. And so when I got out of school, it was kind of a good lesson for my father to go and find a job, do something. And I could read blueprints, and I worked construction in summers, and it just kind of went from there and got my first job this is my 32nd year in the industry, which is crazy to think about, but it was late 1990 when I entered the industry, and here I am. Rest is history, right?
So who was that first job?
It was a union, a small general contractor that was a union shop in Niagara Falls, New York. Walter S. Johnson Building Company had been around for, almost 80 years at that point. So they've been around for a long time. And a union shop, the biggest thing with that is that they tend to draw the trades out of the different halls and self-perform a lot of different things. So I got to see things come together very, very hands-on. It wasn't like the model of today's general contractor tends to be more of a construction management model where you subcontract out most of what you do. There, they self-performed most of what they did. So it was great learning around, very old school, very hands-on. First task was to unpackage their first fax machine, dating myself a little bit. But it was great. It was a great place to learn, and that's what really kind of piqued my interest, was when I got to go out into the field and see how things came together, worked on the estimates, see how the numbers came together, and it kind of went from there.
That's right. So Walter S. Johnson, that's the name of the company?
That's it.
In Niagara Falls, New York.
That's it.
And you stayed with them up until?
I was there about three or 4 years, and then I decided I wanted to learn more of the business. So I went to work for a heavy highway DOT contractor. Okay. To better, and they also did some subdivision infrastructure work. So I got to learn a little bit about the grading business, enough to be dangerous, but understand how things are calculated in productions and crews and all that. After that, went to work for a real estate developer as a construction manager internally, saw from that side. And then once I saw those kind of three perspectives, I realized the GC side was the right move for me. So I made that pivot from there, and then really been a pure general contractor ever since.
Okay. All right. So all of that was in New York.
That's correct.
All right. So where were you at when you made the transition back to Charlotte?
Okay. So I was a project manager for a family, not my family, but a family-owned business up in Western New York. And they had opened up an office like a lot of people did and are still doing in the late 90s. This is 98 when they opened the office. And they'd been open about a year, and they offered me an opportunity to come down as an operations manager in this Charlotte office, their Charlotte branch. And it's one of those things where you look back, and I was 31 at the time, and I didn't know what I didn't know. And that's a real important lesson we're going to talk about later a little bit too. I didn't know what questions to ask. I didn't know what pitfalls to think about. I didn't know what concerns should be going through my mind. I just dove in. And there were some bumpy rides along the way, and that company didn't last much longer after that. Things I wasn't aware of, but it got me to Charlotte. And from that point, I made some really good relationships and made a strategic leap to a large locally owned contractor in town, and spent a solid 5+ years with them, really built up the relationships, the reputation, the understanding of how things worked. And then, met my partner 17 years ago. At the time, I had this 10-year-old company called Concord Construction, and I made that leap of faith. First leap of faith was coming to Charlotte. Second leap of faith was coming to Concord. And here you go.
I want to dig into that a little bit more, because that you brushed over that really quick, but that was a huge leap of faith. I mean, you'd spent your whole entire life in New York.
I did.
And they said, David, we want to send you to Charlotte, North Carolina to open up. Was this a new branch of the company?
Again, it was about a year old, and the mistake they made, and again, it's always easy to look back, hindsight, and see the mistakes made, is that they really didn't import anybody from the home office from a cultural perspective. They just hired some local people that they met, good people, but not the right people. Mm-hmm. And culturally, and the way they were approaching setting projects up, it was a strong deviation from what made them successful, where they started. So I came in with that, again, trying to inject some of that. Again, very young, very naive, came in probably a little too guns a-blazing, and it was an interesting year of my life. And then 6 months into it, they decided to pull the plug on Charlotte. And my options were go back to Buffalo or go find a job.
That's always interesting to me, because you see companies that are successful in the markets where they start, and they grow a business and things are going good, and then they say, hey, things appear to be going well down here in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're gonna take the blueprints that we use to build this here in Buffalo, New York, and we're gonna drop that in Charlotte. And that's not necessarily the same model that you need to follow.
I mean, there has been I've been in Charlotte now 22+ years, And throughout the years, there's always a new game or two, a new name or two that comes to town, and they make a splash, and in my words, they buy a project or two, and then kind of slowly fade away. And it's happened at least once or twice a year in all the years I've been here.
What is that?
Again, I think people come down with this notion that the streets are paved with gold. Well, maybe, but you have to dig in the right places. Charlotte continues to be a growing, larger, small town. It's so relationship driven. Everybody knows what everybody else is doing. We all know the good stories. We for sure all know the bad stories, and it's so focused on. As we continue to grow as a region, that everybody thinks that if I did it here, I can come down and plug in, have the influence. Until you know the right people and understand the way people work and how important trust and transparency is, it's a short-lived formula. Mm-hmm. And I think people come down and hit the wall after a period of time and realize, wow, I need to rethink this, and they slowly pull back.
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's relationships, and
absolutely.
People tend to undervalue that. So the company was not successful in being able to build the chapter here, but somehow you overcame it. Like David figured out how to get through this, and you describe yourself as fast talking Northerner that comes down to Charlotte, North Carolina. Did you experience any of that resistance to your way of doing things, to any resistance to your leadership style? What did you have to overcome culturally to be able to get in the position you're at today?
Right. I think it was more as opposed to doing what I say, follow what I do, kind of thing. Again, if as you're evolving as a young leader and growing those skills, if you can lead no other way, you can lead by example. So as opposed to coming in and saying, this is how we do it, or this is how we've always done it, do it that way. Try to create the program where people can see what you're doing, how you're doing it, and emulate it. And then also be open to learning from others. Learning that maybe you shouldn't come in the room right off the bat and kick right into business. Sit down, have a conversation. Little pigs and chickens, what's going on in your life kind of thing. How's the family? Okay, now let's get into it kind of thing. And it's a little bit different style than I was used to. But again, I've known that now for more of my career than I didn't know it. And so those are the big, I guess, cultural differences, was just approaching it a little bit different angle, really emphasizing the empathy, the understanding of somebody else's perspective. Without that, if you come in that, no, it's my way and that's the right way and the only way, it's going to be a short-lived conversation. And at that point, you just erode whatever trust you've been able to build thus far, just goes away.
I think that's brilliant. You unlocked it right there. You don't come down to the South and tell people this is what you're going to do because I said to do it. It just doesn't go well. You have to earn respect and you have to earn trust, and that takes time and relationships. Exactly and right. It sounds like you figured that out. So you mentioned you and your partner hooked up in 2005.
We met in 2004.
2004.
Yeah, and I made the move in 2005. But yeah, it was a 10-year-old company at the time, and we had met through. I was doing a large institutional project in Myers Park United Methodist Church, and I didn't realize how influential and how big that parish was, and how many people of great influence were members there. But I just went into it. Eyes wide open like I always do, and we just performed, and it was truly a team effort, and it was one of those pinnacle projects where finished on time, under budget, everybody got what they wanted, and it was a great time, and through that experience and through relationships there is how I met my partner Charlie Hodges. And Charlie was came out of the old McDevitt Street back in the day, and you could spend a whole podcast talking about their legacy, but he had created this company in 1994. And for the first 10 years of its existence, it ebbed and flowed in doing some stuff that Charlie was a part in on a real estate side and did some third-party stuff, but it just kind of was there. And he saw an opportunity at the time, for what he called a mid-size, mid-market, contractor. There were plenty of big shops in town. Some of them aren't here anymore, but there were plenty of big, national, international shops in town. Big locally owned, and there were a bunch of smaller shops, but there seemed to be a void there. So we said maybe we can find a way, do things a little different, build on those relationships, and just see where it goes. And I said, I think you're right.
I'm always fascinated by leaders like that have the vision that say, hey, I need to do something a little bit different. And Charlie, it sounds like he had that vision. He didn't know what it was going to look like, but he knew he needed to get you on the team. What was it about you that Charlie said, I got to have that guy?
Well, I think because of the relationships I had and the reputation that I had, when he heard my name come up like the third or fourth time through just different conversations with different people in the industry, that I'd be a good person that might fit that based on my style. He reached out to me. It was a cold call in December of 2004. We met for a cup of coffee, and I thought he wanted me to build a building for him, as a contractor, and because I knew him more from the real estate side. But no, he kind of laid this vision out there. And what's interesting, we're a generation apart, and he grew up and went to Tennessee, went out, spent time out in California, Minnesota, came back to Charlotte. We are very different in how we came up through the ranks, but there's an alignment in our thinking, in a vein that runs through us that's very common in the way we feel about people, and the way we feel about the people that give up to do the things that we do, and how we want to take care of them. So even though again we've got different perspectives and came from different worlds, there's a commonality between us that allows us to, in 17 years, I mean, there's been some disagreements, but it's never been anything where we just can look at each other, talk through it, and leave the room with a single voice.
Well, he didn't want to hire another him. He wanted someone that could challenge him and make him see things in a different perspective. And
correct.
Sounds like you guys do that well. So when he hired you in 2005,
yep.
What was your title? What was he hiring you as?
I think it was executive vice president.
So you come in as vice president.
Yeah.
And I'm curious because I've seen this, where an acquisition takes place or company changes hand, new guy comes in, they hire somebody, and I've experienced this a couple of times. I'm curious as to your approach to that, right? Day one, you're introduced as the new executive vice president of the company.
Right. How
did you do that? How did you come into the organization? How did you establish that trust and respect that you knew you needed to have to be able to get these people to get behind you?
Right. Well, at first it was, and again, it was time for me to there's Stephen Covey's, one of his 7 habits, seek to understand before being understood. So to me, I interpret that as I needed to listen a little more than I talked. So got to know, there was, I think, 11 employees of Concord Construction when I came in the door, and they were doing some smaller scale, some senior housing stuff, a little bit of interiors work. Both some was internal, some was third party kind of stuff. So, but I try to take the time to understand what people's roles were, because they weren't necessarily as well defined as you might think, and try to understand their process and how they did things, how they were wired. And then once I had a better sense of that, I began to try to implement some influence and tried to do it like, hey, have we thought about it this way versus here's the new manual, read it, live by it. Let's go off into the sunset. So it was a slow, and there were plenty of mistakes made along the way. I mean, the best lessons I've learned is when I got my butt handed to me or banged off the guardrail hard enough that I was okay. I don't want to have that experience again. So you can only learn so much, and that's the whole kind of approach. The way I lead now too is that I anticipate people making mistakes. Why? Because they're human beings. People make mistakes. I make them every day, and we have to learn from those mistakes. So the key is, I've never yelled at somebody. I've never terminated somebody. I've never written somebody up for making a mistake. Let's learn from it. Let's understand it, and let's make sure it never happens again. Mm-hmm. And that seems to be a much better strategy than ruling with an iron fist.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. So Charlie didn't say, "Hey, day one, this is where I want you to plug in. This is what I want you to do." He said, "Come in, get to know us, establish that trust and relationship, and you find out where you need to plug in."
I think it was. That's a very well structured way to say it. It was a little bit loose and a little bit ill defined. And again, it goes back to my comments about that move. I came into it. I knew a little bit more of things to ask about, more about the stability and infrastructure of the company. But there was, again, I didn't know what I didn't know as far as I've always worked in businesses. Now I was going to work on a business and grow a business and own a piece of a business. Different mindset.
I did that when Brian McManus called me and asked me to join the Hoopah grading team. I remember telling Brian, I don't know anything about grading. He said, I don't need you to know grading. I know grading. He said, I need you to know people. And so I joined the team because he shared a vision with me. He shared where they wanted to go as a company, and I got excited about it. But when I came in day one, I had no idea what I was going to be doing. And the people that were working at Hoopaw Great had no idea why I was there. And it probably took about 3-4 months of just observing and learning and listening before I could identify a place where I could plug in and make a difference. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you went through a very similar timeline on that. So what was your first project where you said, all right, I think I can help out here?
Well, the first significant project was we built a headquarters for a company at the time called Livingston and Haven, or L&H Technologies, they rebranded to. And it was going to be their new headquarters, and it was going to be some warehouse piece and also some R&D, for some of the stuff they did on the technology side. And it was through a friend of a friend where I got the initial relationship, and we were competing against companies that had been around for a long time. And we were probably the weakest resume there, but got a chance to meet the right people and just came in the room and knew that they were going to need to take a leap of faith on us. And again, I'm sure we were slightly more aggressive in our pricing at the time too, but that project and having the team that I had with me to go do it, that was kind of a springboard for us, on that kind of work. Again, it's always been, and again, we'll get into more detail on this, but for me, it's always been, if I have the right people around me, the right people across from me, whatever the case may be it colleagues, be it subcontractors, be it clients, be it designers, if we have the right people in the equation, we are going to be successful more than we're not. And in that particular arena, we knew the owner well, we knew the design team, I had the right team with me, and I said, why shouldn't we take this leap? So
another leap of faith.
Yeah, I find myself leaping a lot for a guy who didn't play basketball.
Well, obviously it's working for you because 17 years later, you're still there, not just there, but now you're the CEO of the organization. Yeah. So, David, I know you're a very humble guy and you don't take credit for any of this, but tell me how has the company changed under your leadership? What does Concord Construction look like today?
When you step back and reflect on like day one versus today, it has come so far. But when you're in it every day and it's these small bites, you don't fully appreciate it. So, we have grown. So that first year I was there, so I started into 2005. But for 2005, I think the company revenue was sub like $6 million, like $5.8 million for the year. 2022, we're going to do over $100 million. So if you look at numbers now, it hasn't been a straight line. It's been a little bit of an EKG, but if you took that median line through it, it's
incredible.
It's been growth. Quantity of people, but really it goes back to the way that the approach has always been is that we have to be able to bring value and expertise to the equation. So where's the best place for us to plug in? And it's really and we've gone to there's an old Wayne Gretzky adage: skate to where the puck's going to be. Everybody's kind of fighting where the puck is right now, right? So we're here in 2022, we're trying to be talking about 2024, late 2023. Where's the world going to be? Because all the different market segments, they're somewhere in their cycle, on the upside, at the top, on the way down. In really understanding where those peaks and valleys are, and trying to be strategic and get there. And the way we've always been able to penetrate is that we target a particular market segment that we have some experience. Maybe it's gone quiet, or we're active and want to do more. And we try to make sure that we can plug in, whether it's project size, project geography, project complexity, where we know we can bring value. And once we've done that and we do it successfully, then we've seen over time the project sizes, the project geography, the project complexities grow. And we've done that with hospitality, with multifamily. We've done that with interiors. We've done it with several different market segments. We're pushing back right now into industrial. Adaptive reuse is all the rage right now. But again, we're plugging in initially where it makes sense for us, where we know we can bring value, bring some expertise to it, build that trust, build that confidence, build that resume, and then go from there. It's never been, I would never walk in the room and say, I can compete with anybody and I can do this and I can do 1 million square feet. No, I can't. I can, but I shouldn't.
Well, I think that's how you go from 6 million to 100 million a year. It's that you realize you're in this for the long haul.
Truly.
This is going to take time. This is going to take a track record of proven success to be able to get to where we want to go. And obviously we're in a market. There is no shortage of general contractors in the Charlotte area.
True story.
So you guys have to find some way to separate yourself, that slight edge that you're looking for to separate yourself from the other 100 that are out there trying to compete for that work. What is that? And you mentioned bringing value, but what is it that someone says, hey, I'm hitching my wagon to the Concord train?
Well, it goes back to, I think, some really simple things. Again, the way I frame it to our team is that, that same adage where every contractor is facing the same weather, the same supply chain, the same subcontractor pool, the same inspectors. The only thing we can do differently is how we treat each other inside these four walls, and these four walls being our company. And if we approach it, and if we have the collaboration, if we have the transparency, if we build the trust, if we keep the structure as flat as can be and allow people to know that they've got resources and mentors and training and won't be thrown out the door for making a mistake, it is a little bit different mindset. I think it really starts with the company being an extension of kind of my personality. Again, I'm a humble leader, but that's because I'm only as good as the next decision that I make, and I've learned that who you surround yourself with. Your parents taught you this. You taught your kids this. Who you surround yourself with is the most important decision that you'll ever make. And that does not change when you're an adult. Right. If you going back to my comment earlier, if you are at the table and you're unsure of the design team and the owner is a little bit sketchy and maybe you don't have the right quality of talent on your team, it makes for a very long day. Mm-hmm.
And that's on you to structure that team and to make sure that you've got the right team to carry you.
That's on me. Yeah.
Really cool. Well, you've done a good job of that.
I appreciate that.
Hey, I want to talk about this rebranding that you've gone through. That's my background is on the marketing side. I love that piece of it, and I'm always our industry, the construction industry, we're a little slow to the game on this thing, right? The rest of the world has figured out that's an important piece. Yeah. You've got to be able to tell your story. People have to be able to recognize you. But yet the construction industry in general has kind of stepped back from that. Say, I don't need to spend money on logos. I don't need to spend money on a website. I don't need to spend money on telling our story. But it's critical. And you figured that out. We're trying to do that here at Hoopa Grading too. Mm-hmm. Why rebrand? Why go through that? That's got to be an exhausting process.
It is, but it was also a lot of fun. I mean, it's somewhat serendipitous. I mean, I joined a peer advisory group. CEO Focus is the name of the group, and in that group, I met a gentleman who runs a creative marketing company. We met for the first time, and through that, and it's funny, he was in the process of buying a little building and wanted to make it his new creative headquarters, and so we found all this synergy. But I started talking about during our monthly sessions as a group about the company is 27 years old. I've been running for the last 17. We're trying to push what I frame as Concord 3.0, Charlie being 1.0, me being 2.0. And part of it was just kind of, it felt stale, for lack of a better word. And it's funny, when Charlie and I met 17 years ago, he was 53 and I was 36. If you add 17 onto that, I'm now 53 and Charlie's now 70. And it's just that was just one of those aha moments as well. I'm it's really time to be focused on this next generation. Both Charlie and I, again, that common vein running through us, it was very clear that, as you get to a certain point, you need to start thinking about the next chapter, both personally and professionally. So is it, there's three options in my mind anyways. You can package it up and sell it to a third party from somewhere else. You can shut the doors and wrap it up and call it a career, or you can create that organic, natural growth. And that's obviously the direction that we were leaning. So this whole idea of Concord 3.0 and the refresh, and while the new logo and the new colors are cool and fresh and gritty, and we'll get into that in a second, it's really the words behind it. It was really Charlie and I being of one mind and resetting the vision for the company, and not this 10-year grandiose thing. The world moves too quickly. We kind of set a 3-year kind of vision and the mission to get there, and then restate the core values. We didn't change our core values. We just restated them and refined them back to something that felt more relevant and more real for the world we're in today and where we want to go. So in meeting that gentleman, and I'll throw him a plug, Andy Pfeiffer with Arthur Elliott, Creative Marketing, unbelievably fun group of people. When we first started sitting down, They said, try to summarize your entire industry in like 3 words or less. I'm like, really? Okay. So I came up with gritty sophistication. And they looked at me and I said, let me explain. I said, there's still going to be a grittiness to what we do. You're in the dirt, you're in the cold, you're in the heat, you're in the rain. There's a grit. There's still people having to strap on the tools and go to work. It's a gritty industry. Now on the flip side, innovation, technology just keeps progressing, and there's a sophistication in the way we carry ourselves and the way we treat other people. That's the view. I said, I don't want to see the words gritty or sophistication, but use that as your guiding light. And we went through this whole archetyping process, and that's where they came up with some of the images that you see on the video on our website.
Which, by the way, that you go to the website, if you are listening, you need to go check out Concord Construction's website. It's really cool. The first thing that pops up is this video of ranchers roping cattle.
Yeah.
And I was fascinated. I hit play. I'm watching this thing, and it is this cool combination. Like, you captured gritty sophistication to a T in that video, because I felt like the voiceover that I'm listening to as this video is going through was a mix of John Dutton from Yellowstone and Vince Lombardi.
That's right.
It was this great motivational speech that you get to the end of the video and you're like, all right, let's go. Put me in, coach.
Makes you want to run through a wall.
I'm ready to go.
Yeah. No, I did the narration on that.
That was you.
That was me. That was me.
That was awesome.
You couldn't tell by the voice.
There it is. There's that voice.
That was a lot of fun. But it was, the whole archetyping process was kind of interesting, where you take some questionnaires and you're answering the questions from the perspective of the company. And it wasn't just me; it was all the senior leadership team and a few others. And they came back with these 2 archetypes as the solemn rancher and the orchestra conductor. And that fluidity of the process. And that was the inspiration behind it all. And on the colors, it was interesting. Like, they did this big national kind of research project, and the number 1 color used by construction companies is blue. Guess what the number 2 color is? It's red.
Red.
Yeah, and we had both red and blue in our. So we were aiming for the middle. So this whole idea of this black and the copper color, and again, it kind of ties into that rustic aspect of that grittiness of it. But it was just, that was the fun part of it, and the new swag, and we have these cool carbon fiber copper hard hats now, and everybody's like, oh, those are cool, but at the end of the day, we still have to do our jobs. But it was, part of that was the whole idea of the rebrand was and we had a big internal rollout back in September, and then the public rollout in October of last year, was to help the team understand that we are committed to this and we are going to invest in this. The rebrand was an investment. We actually moved our offices too. We moved about 200 feet from one suite to another suite in the same building, but we went from 6,300 square feet to 8,000 and rebranded that, into the new look and the collaboration feel and the multi-purpose fun areas and all that stuff. But to help show the commitment of what we're doing, and really to, it's easy to talk about what you want to do and how we're going to invest, but you have to do these things. And this company now, with this rebrand and the commitments that we've made to ourselves, is set up to get that 3.0 fully launched, and let 3.0 figure out what 4.0 should look like. But
what's really cool about that is you go through this rebrand. It is fun. It is a cool process, and you're trying to get your company in the public eye and in front of the clients, the ones that are going to help you achieve your goals. But the other benefit of it is you create a sense of pride for your employees. They like this brand. They're wearing it. They're wearing it proudly. It represents them. And what I love about the 1.0, 1.0 is Charlie, 2.0 was you, 3.0 is the team.
Exactly right.
It belongs to the employees.
Exactly right.
That sense of pride comes along with the rebranding strategy. So I think that's really cool that you've done that and let them be a part of that too. And you're experiencing the benefits of it. David, we've gotten to the point of the podcast where you've heard this enough, where you got to give us the dirt. This is the part where you give us something back, right?
Okay.
And I've listened to your story. I've enjoyed getting to know you over the last year or two, and there's some themes that jump out to me in your story. One of them is that there actually is a career path that can take someone from a junior estimator to a CEO position. Like, that exists. Like, it can be done, and you've proven that it can be done. It may not look very linear. You may have to jump around from place to place, but you can do that. To do it, though, it required a couple leaps of faith.
True.
And it also required a mindset of constant learning. You never quit learning. You were always trying to learn new skills and things that could help you be a better leader. So knowing that and knowing that's been part of your journey, what would you tell that young man or woman that's trying to start out and they're looking at the opportunity to jump in as a junior estimator and wondering how to build a career out of that?
Sure. Well, I've touched on a few of I think the key elements. Knowing what you don't know. It's a very powerful moment in a person's life if they're in a situation where leading up to it, you kind of don't know what you don't know. And when you have that epiphany, like, okay, I'm now in something that I know for sure that I don't know, and how do I go and find out? And that's when the flywheel kind of kicks in. At least it did for me, where you have that epiphany, like, hey, I'm smart enough to know what I don't know. I recognize I need to seek higher counsel, and you go find out. And that's when I don't have all the answers. Yeah, I guess I'm ultimately responsible, but I know what I don't know. Then I go find out. So that is a key lesson, and give yourself the time to get to that level. I mentioned earlier about who you surround yourself with. Again, that is a key element. It's been to my success. Is again, it's if you're leading and nobody's following, you're just kind of out for a walk, right? So the key is again to surround yourself with people. Be a humble leader. You mentioned that earlier. I frame it being a servant leader. For me, our org chart, we organize it from the bottom up. I'm at the bottom, as I should be, because the people at the top of our org chart, the project management, the superintendents, the people that are touching the public, that are touching the clients the most, that are touching the subcontractors the most, that's the company. Perception drives reality. Mm-hmm. We can look in the mirror and say we're great, we're awesome, we do everything better than everybody else. It's how you're perceived by the world defines who you are. Period. So those are some of the basic things. To your point, I think you have to be strategic, and we are. I mean, I didn't stay in one place my entire career, so I think being strategic, but having the right motivation when you make those changes is really, really key. Money's important. It makes the world go round. I get that. But keep that in perspective as to what's most important. Because again, I jokingly call it the aggravation compensation scale, because there's going to be moments in time where you're just going to be frustrated, challenged, aggravated. And if your compensation's not a whack, it kind of tips the scales a little bit. And then you can go get another job making more money, or your current employer can add more money to your equation, get you back in balance. But what's really changed? So I think really understanding what is most important. Again, we all need money, and I've never found myself in a situation where if it's the right people at the table, whether it's with a client for a project or employee or a potential candidate, that money should be over here. We will figure that out. Let's make sure we have that alignment, that similar philosophy on the next steps. And if you get that, and when you get to that point where you're comfortable enough to do that, the money will work itself out. I've yet to see that not happen.
Well, and I think you've gotten to the point in your career too where you've learned, and I think that's another great lesson to take away for someone that's just starting out their career. It wasn't that you made all the right moves. Oh. It was that you learned something from every move that you made.
Absolutely.
That made you better. And I think that's incredible. So what excites you about where Concord is right now and where you're going? What are you most excited about? The two times when I am most energized, well, 3 times, doing this, interacting with people, having a chance just to talk and think out loud, if you will, excites me. But in the company, when I'm engaging, not just selling work, but when I'm engaging with a client and I know I have their attention, I have their trust, and we are talking through challenges and opportunities and getting to a solution, that energizes me. That relationship development, that business development piece. When I'm talking to candidates, when I'm talking to people that are looking for that next chapter of their life, and I can usually get the energy going, and I can get once I don't do well on Zoom and Teams calls. I've learned that about myself. I can do fine over the phone, but it's too easy. It's too easy to misinterpret, my emphasis and where I'm going, who I'm speaking with. The written word is fine, but to me, it's like, let's get in the room. Let's look each other in the eye. You are not going to misunderstand the direction I'm going if you see my face, So when I'm in those moments and I can create the energy and I can lift the room and get people wanting to run through that wall with me,
that excites the hell out of me.
There's that Vince Lombardi piece of you coming out.
That's it.
What makes you most nervous? You've talked to us about what gets you excited, what gets you pumped up. Is there anything that gives you pause that says, man, I'm a little worried about that?
Yeah, I mean, again, and usually it ends up being things that are truly out of my control, which I think is human nature. Again, you can talk today about the supply chain and the volatility of pricing and all that, but our industry as a whole, and you guys are closer to it than I am too. I mean, just while all the news stories right now are talking about inflation and supply chain, down here rumbling is the decreasing quality labor pool. People that want to do what we do for a living. Because at the end of the day, if you can't find quality people to grade and put pipe in the ground and do all the great things that you all do, what do you have? If we can't find people that are willing to, hey, it's freezing, come on outside. Hey, it's 95 degrees. Jump in the hole with us. It's not a glamorous, it's a gritty profession. And trying to find people that want to do that, and that's one of the things I'm involved in personally with the Rock Charlotte, which I think
tell us about that.
So the Rock Charlotte stands for Rebuilding Opportunities in Construction, and it, again, serendipity played a role. This is 2018. I think I was at a fundraiser luncheon for a North Carolina politician that somebody said, hey, can you go to this luncheon and fill in? And I did. And there was a roundtable discussion that was supposed to be talking about, from a real estate side, the obstacles of people getting stuff rezoned and approved and everything. I was the only contractor in the room. And the conversation kind of pivoted to the time labor was a big discussion. So I got called on. And I ended up talking for like 25 minutes, but it was engaged in the room. And somebody in the room said, hey, you should reach out to this gentleman, Darren Ash. He's got this thing called The Rock. So I wrote it down, went back and Googled it. And of course, it's not ROCK, it's just ROC, Rebuilding Opportunities in Construction. But reached out to Darren, and it was year one of The Rock. And Rock Charlotte, basically what it is a brainchild of Darren Ash. And he has created a true collaboration between Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools, Central Piedmont Community College's Construction Institute, and Goodwill Industries. He was able to bring those three entities together in some fashion. CMS obviously is the kids, CPCC is the instruction, and Goodwill Industries was the facility to create an opportunity and a curriculum for. And we're in this is going on year 4 right now. There's a facility that is owned by Goodwill Industries that there was a grant done that was rehabbed and created these labs. And there's a focus on carpentry, on electrical, and on HVAC right now. And what it is, students have to meet certain qualifications and can apply for it. And they give up in their junior year, I think, an elective and a science to get into it. They spend part of their day at the Rock facility. In their junior year, they get exposed to all 3 trades. During the summer between junior and senior year, they get to have an internship. And that's where the public gets involved. It's where private companies plug in and offer these internships. The kids come back. It's a paid internship as well. The kids come back their senior year and they pick which path they want to go: carpentry, electrical, HVAC. They also then get introduced in the curriculum to the technology sides. They're learning BIM. They're learning all the Procore, all the softwares that are very relevant in our industry. And then when they graduate from high school, they have 2 things. They have a high school diploma. They also have 1 year's credit from CPCC because all the classes in the Rock were taught by CPCC instructors. And at that point, we have what we call the Rock Direct or the Rock College. At the Rock Direct, there are some kids that just want to go off in the workforce, and we help try to place them in the right scenario. The Rock Colleges, they can go to CPCC for 1 more year, tuition free, because there's a grant in place for that, and they'll graduate after 1 year with a 2-year degree in construction management.
What an amazing program!
And again, I jumped in with both feet. We had an intern that first year. We've had an intern every year since then. But then about a year, in 2019 is when I was talking with Darren. He asked me to be on the board of directors, and I couldn't say yes fast enough. So again, it's been difficult with the pandemic and just, the transportation of kids and instructors availability and all that stuff. So it definitely had the clutch pushing a little bit, but the whole world has the clutch pushed in right now, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure the logistics of it have been a challenge here lately, but what a testament to actually taking the bull by the horns and running with this. It's so easy for us to sit back and say we can't find talent. We can't find people that are interested in getting into the trades, into our business. But the responsibility falls on us to change the narrative, to get in, to show them the gritty, sophisticated side of the business, and to give them the opportunities to do it. And so that's why I love what The Rock's doing, and I admire you for being a part of that. How does someone that's listening today, we got a lot of people in the construction business that are listening that would probably be interested in supporting that. How do they get involved in The Rock?
We'll go to rockcharlotte.org.
ROCCharlotte.org.
Yes, ROCCharlotte, one word, .org. Go check out the website. Obviously, they take donations, which is great because money helps the world go around. But it's less about the money. It's more about again, we've had the general contractors step up significantly, but because these kids are learning carpentry, electrical, and HVAC, we really need to go deeper into the subcontractor pool so that when it's time to place these kids, whether internships or actual jobs, that's where we need it, is at the journey person level. We have all the construction managers we can handle right now, but again, I think it's understanding. The facility is incredible. When I say labs, I mean they have a large warehouse space where these kids are putting together and taking apart structures. There's an electrical room where these kids are working with high voltage and low voltage and all this different stuff. I mean, it's truly so cool. Truly hands on.
I'm gonna check that out as soon as I'm gonna go and check it out. I want to go see the facility too because it sounds amazing.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
How does someone get to your website so they can watch that cool video and you and your voiceover?
ConcordConst.com. ConcordConst. ConcordConst.com. And it'll pop right up. And best place to find me is LinkedIn. I'm not a huge social media guy, but I keep trying. But LinkedIn is where I spend most of my time, and I'd love to link in with folks and meet people that are directly related or peripherally related.
I agree with you, and thank goodness I listened to Gary when he said you got to meet this guy, because it's truly been an honor to be able to spend some time with you, to get to know you personally, but also to hear your story here through the podcast.
Pleasure was mine, sir.
So I want to thank you so much for spending some time with us, and best of luck to you and your team in 2022, David.
Same to you, my friend.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Give Us the Dirt. Our podcast is powered by Hoopah Grading Company in Charlotte, North Carolina, and produced by Well Run Media and Marketing. Visit our website at giveusthedirtpodcast.com and subscribe to this podcast on Apple and Google so you never miss an episode.